Somewhere out there, a kidnapper thinks he got away clean. No witnesses. No cameras worth a damn. An 84-year-old woman snatched in the dead of night from her own home and vanished into the Arizona darkness like she was never there. But here's what that person does not know. He left something behind. Something invisible to the naked eye. Something science is now closing in on. And according to one of the world's leading DNA experts, once they crack it, this case will be solved in a matter of weeks. Nancy Guthrie, the 84-year-old mother of Today's Show host Savannah Guthrie, was forcibly taken from her Tucson, Arizona home in the early hours of February 1st. Surveillance footage captured a masked male suspect tampering with her doorbell camera moments before she disappeared. Described by the FBI as between 5 foot 9 inches and 5 foot 10 inches, average build, carrying an Ozark Trail hiking backpack. Fox News. He wore gloves. He wore a mask. He planned this. But planning only gets you so far. Investigators confirmed that DNA was collected at the property that doesn't belong to Nancy or anyone in close contact with her. CBS News. That's huge. That's the kidnapper's biological fingerprint left at the scene of his own crime. But here's where it gets complicated. Pima County Sheriff Chris Nanos confirmed the unknown DNA found at Nancy's home is a mixture, meaning genetic material from more than one person is present in the same sample. Today.com, and that one-word mixture is what's standing between investigators and an arrest. According to leading genetic genealogist Cece Moore, chief genetic genealogist at Parabon Nanolabs, there are simple mixtures, and there are complex mixtures. A simple one, say, Nancy's DNA plus one unknown male, is workable, but a complex mixture with multiple unknown contributors? That's a different beast entirely. The challenge isn't finding the DNA, it's separating it. Scientists must isolate a single suspect's genetic thread from a tangled web of multiple contributors, a process called deconvolution, and right now, the technology to do that at the level needed for genetic genealogy is still being developed. The FBI confirmed that investigative genetic genealogy is already underway on DNA recovered from a glove found 2 miles from Nancy's home, a glove that appears to match the type worn by the suspect seen in surveillance video. That DNA came back with no hits in CODIS, the FBI's National Criminal Database. Fox News. That means this person has likely never been arrested. He's not in the system. But that doesn't mean he's invisible. This is where things get extraordinary. Genetic genealogy takes an unknown suspect's DNA and reverse engineers their entire family tree, working backward through relatives who have voluntarily submitted their DNA to public databases until investigators can zero in on the individual. ABC News. It's like finding a needle in a haystack by first identifying every member of the needle's family. This is the same technique that helped unmask the Golden State Killer Joseph DeAngelo, a predator who terrorized California for decades and evaded capture until a DNA match through the genealogy site GEDmatch helped build a family tree that led directly to his door. PBS. It's the same method that exposed Idaho killer Brian Koberger, whose DNA on a knife sheath at the crime scene cross-referenced through genealogy databases and confirmed through DNA pulled from his parents' trash, ended with a life sentence in July 2025. Cece Moore has been direct. If I was the kidnapper, I would be extremely concerned right now. She says that if he has deep roots in the United States, identification could take minutes or hours once a viable profile is uploaded. Here's the catch. The two databases law enforcement is currently permitted to use, GEDmatch and Family Tree DNA, are among the smallest available. Ancestry, 23andMe, and MyHeritage, which together hold data on tens of millions of people, have barred law enforcement from accessing their records to protect user privacy. NBC News. That's a massive limitation when every hour counts. But Moore and other experts believe that if this suspect isn't identified soon, law enforcement will very likely seek warrants on those larger databases. ABC News turning a pool of 2 million profiles into a pool of 50 million. The difference between finding someone in weeks versus finding them in minutes. Moore has also raised a chilling but hopeful point. Nancy didn't just disappear into thin air. She went somewhere. A car, a house, a room. And wherever she was taken, that location is a second opportunity for investigators to collect clean, uncontaminated DNA from the kidnapper. Moore stated plainly, she had to be held somewhere. If there is a second crime scene that has discovered a vehicle or another property, then that gives them another opportunity to find DNA. International Business Times. We saw this exact scenario play out in Australia around the same time, where a kidnapped grandfather was eventually found at a secondary location, and that location gave investigators the additional evidence they needed. Here's the bombshell buried inside all of this science. Former Pima County Sheriff and former U.S. Surgeon General Richard Carmona has publicly accused current Sheriff Chris Nanos of mishandling the crime scene and, in his words, corrupting it. International Business Times. That's a stunning accusation. If true, it means the very evidence that could name this kidnapper may have been compromised from the start. But even with that cloud hanging over the investigation, the science is racing forward. New deconvolution software is being fast-tracked. New equipment is reportedly on the horizon, and the FBI's genetic genealogy team, with resources that dwarf any local department, is believed to be deeply involved. This kidnapper is not as invisible as he thinks. He left his biology at the scene. He touched things. He breathed. He bled into the same air Nancy breathed. And right now, in a laboratory somewhere in America, scientists are pulling his identity out of a molecular puzzle piece by piece. CeCe Moore's closing message is clear. If they get a viable DNA profile from this kidnapper, genetic genealogy will solve this case. Not in a year, not in months, in weeks. The clock is ticking, and for the first time in this investigation, it may be ticking against him.